Hi, I'm Byron Diffenderfer, and
I'm Anthony Vasiliadis.
this is episode 2 of the STEREOSCOPE podcast.
So first of all, you might have noticed some changes to the last time we did this. We tried to listen to the feedback that we received about
Which was some
significant
and valid
criticisms.
So we tried to mix it up, try to make it a little bit more visually interesting. We got tchotchkes here to give you a sense of depth.
Yeah. Should feel a little less formal because we're not like square against the wall and stuff like that. Just try to,
We're hanging out.
Yeah, trying to make it a little more loose and less formal feeling, and the awkward of just staring at our legs.
My spinely legs.
But anyway, we've got some interesting stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, it was interesting because, also, I think it's pretty clear monthly is most likely what we're going to be shooting for at this point. I think bi-weekly was a little ambitious. Hey, eventually there might be enough news to do bi-weekly.
Yeah. And enough time to render. So
and when we have like a render monkey, we can throw at it.
So and we are shooting this in 60p, so that's another thing we're hoping doesn't.
Yeah. So we're on a much tighter deadline than we had before.
Yes, but literally, this post stuff is pushing me to build a new computer.
Yeah. So. I actually. I nuked my rig from orbit. It was the only way to be sure, or at least that's what Mystica thought. But I had just got a new rig. I had ordered one literally days before my CPU kicked the bucket. So we're doing that from my new render rig, which fits in the palm of your hand.
Which is nice.
Shout out to Legion.
Mine won't fit in the palm of your hand.
All right. So, and that was actually the one of the things that I was, about 2 weeks ago, I was like, I don't know if there's going to be enough news and stuff to fit into this week, but I feel like that's going to be a thing where right as we're thinking that, all the news sort of pops up. So,
yeah, ebbs and flows.
All
so,
right.
What first up is the...
the first one we have up is LumePad from Leia Inc. So this popped up. So this device has actually been out for a while, and it's a second iteration. But it caught my eye because I think the founder of Leia Inc. Posted in the 360 Professionals forum that they had just updated the firmware and the software for the device to support VR 180 videos playback natively on the tablet, which I think is really cool. So stereo devices, obviously, you need some sort of baked-in hardware for it to work unless you're using anaglyph. And this device sort of answers that. And I think the reason why I wanted to include it is because I think it could be hugely impactful for quality control and possibly even like a real-time solution for checking stereo in a production scenario. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that would be a lovely application for this, actually, because, I mean, as we know, we can do some of this stuff like with headsets within our editing programs, but I don't know if anybody else has found a real solution. They're really subpar, we'll just say that. And it's just too lengthy to sit there and put a headset on and off and stuff like that. So having like a small monitor, similar to an editing monitor, sitting there showing off how well your stereo is working would be sweet.
Mind you, that's not the case yet. There are use cases for Unity. It does have a real-time Unity application, not baked in, but through a software portal. And that's what, when I was looking at the device, that's what inspired me. Like, well, if they can do it for that, I mean, there's got to be a way to get a video out from like an R5C that they can do a real-time.
Yeah, but then that's a stretch stitch and do it all in real time.
I mean, a lot of what they're doing here is not that different either. I mean, it just it seems to me, even if it's not real time with a couple second delay, they could do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be stoked with that. Also,
but what I'm saying is that a device like this is exactly what we need in a production scenario for. Just quick and dirty checking stereo, because we ran into this still are, on a project that we're working on. We had a lens misalignment, and it messed with the stereo, and we didn't know until the entire thing was rendered out. And now we have to go back and use Mystica to fix it. And that's what nuked my rig.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be lovely. This is also just opening up a dialogue. Anybody else have issues with their VR lens for the Canon R5C, the 5.2mm dual fisheye lens, with it falling out of, like, getting pretty gnarly vertical misalignment every other time you shoot? I don't know if it was just us doing something wrong or what. I've actually got a ticket open with Canon to send it off and have it evaluated, because maybe it's just ours. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So LumePad, I mean, it's all their, like, bespoke software that is cooked by them, and I think that's probably the biggest flaw of the device. I haven't used it yet. I have to be very clear about that. But whenever you see these devices like that have this baked-in software, that part is always the biggest failure point.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the only trying to sell this as a consumer device seems.
Yes. But on the other hand, because I mean, like, even the idea of using it as a quality control device is a bit of a pipe dream. Like, it's not what it does yet. It just has the capability, maybe, with some whatever. But outside of all that, just looking at what it is and what it represents, to me, I just see another device that people can consume the content on.
And that is a good thing. That is a very good thing.
We need all that, because every time I talk to people, because obviously there's still not everybody, there's, I don't know, 10, 20 million headsets out there, but, like, I don't know hardly anybody outside of the two of us that have headsets. So I'm always talking to people like, I'd really love to show you this, but you need a headset, or you need some sort of device.
Yeah.
So the more avenues for people to consume...
I feel like a tablet being a stereo device makes a lot more sense as a consumption device than, like, a 3D TV, because a tablet you're only using by yourself. A 3D TVs are inherently a social construct. That's how they were. The whole family got around the TV back in the 1950s. A tablet, unless you're watching it with a kid, it's a solitary.
Yeah. Well, this brings up with the VR video on this. Like, I'm assuming then if you're watching VR video and you want to look around, you do this, right? With is that the? I
think that there's motion control built into it. It's probably you can move around and drag or swipe around. And it uses glasses-free technology. I'm guessing it's the same. They're throwing around AI. I don't really understand what the AI part of this is, but
it's probably just buzzword because that's the hottest thing in tech right now. So,
they're using eye tracking and a Polaroid screen. Same tech that was in the new Nintendo 3DS back in 2013.
Yeah.
Or 2015. Which was a very good effect. I tried that out. I used to have one. And the eye tracking really locked in the stereo in a way that was like, the 3DS didn't make sense until they added the eye tracking. And then it was like, oh, wow, this is incredible. Mind you, it was like a 320p screen.
But it's still super cool. Yeah. So, anyway, well, that's the LumePad. And let's move on to...
Okay, so the next one is Immer Gallery. So they're it's a video consumption app. It looks like it's, in a alpha, but they found a way to grab the pass-through from the Quest 3 cameras and record video for it. So everybody who has a Quest 3 has a stereo camera built in. From what I've seen, obviously, it is very hacky. A lot of the stuff featured today is hacky. But it's very, very interesting because... so what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah, it's
I
cool.
think you're a little bit more skeptical than I am.
Well, we all know how great the visual quality of the pass-through is on the Quest 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's grainy.
So there's that. I'm
lots of digital noise.
And as they're sort of showing here, like, your head being the thing that controls the camera, probably not great, because staying level is not something your head does
I mean,
that often.
whenever I've thought about this, it's like, so this gives us some insight into the same issues that the Apple Vision Pro is going to have. Like if you're strapping a camera to your face, your head is not a gimbal, and your brain processes out the inconsistencies in the motion, and this camera is obviously not doing that. You can even see there in some of the description of how this works, they mentioned that how we should use it is you should use the level, and then it'll start the level, and then it'll go away after 5 seconds, and then just keep your head that way, which does not seem like a high usability factor.
Yeah.
But it's a very cool thing. I haven't tried it out mainly because I'm a little wary of doing this on my stock Quest 3. But it makes me think about the issues that the Apple Vision Pro is going to have, because I just cannot see their stabilization software working in the same way. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to me, unless it has like really epic stabilization where you can at least do this, and it not throw the level off, then maybe it's something. My thoughts in general, though, are like I'm just happy that like people are doing this, which means there's some sort of demand for it, which means people are trying to make content, which means the market's growing. So I'm only ever like really thinking about like, we're in this space, we're looking for audiences. I think this means that's coming.
Yeah. And it also means that there are people trying to solve these problems of what is a camera in a headset look like? What are the practical use case scenarios, and what are the impractical use case scenarios? At what point does it stop being a gimmick and start being usable?
Yeah. Let's look at it this way. We're just now getting to the point where things shot on iPhone are actually like super viable, and that's in 2D. So this is like your Motorola Razr camera phone level of it's convenient that you have it, but is it really useful? Yeah. Which really kind of leads us into the next topic, which is kind of the same thing, or the next two topics anyway.
Yeah, so this one, I mean, this is going to be a big thing. It was in our last episode. It's going to be a continuing process covering this.
Yes.
Because this is sort of where all of the industry, this is the crux for the industry, is the iPhone 15 Pro and spatial video, at least for the foreseeable future. I
mean, I don't know if crux is the right word, but it's like, it is a weird inflection point, good or bad. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because this honestly feels like, people have, for if you don't already know, if you install the beta software on your phone, you can get this feature going, and then somebody's hacked together
got a video from Hugh here.
Yeah, a mod to extract the video from the phone and watch it on your headset. And it's 1080p, it's 30p, and that's it. There's not much to it. And because...
In a frame.
Yeah, in a frame. That's obviously not 180 at all. And because one camera is the main camera on the phone, which is excellent, and the other one is somewhat mediocre because it's the wide-angle camera, and we're cropping into that wide-angle image, the eyes don't even fully match.
And there was somebody on Reddit who did a really good breakdown.
Great breakdown.
Fantastic breakdown.
We should shout out, we'll look at his name and shout him out.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. He effectively said that it's got an excellent stereo effect. So the magic that they're using, it's not hypostereo. Hyper stereo?
I think hypo is correct.
Hypo. It's not hypostereo, despite the fact that the lenses are right next to each other. But the depth sensor doing the depth mapping works really well, which I was very sort of skeptical about it, just because I've seen it in the past and I've never seen it work correctly, or at least as well as supposedly this works. But he said that it's not great quality.
Right.
And like you said, well, one thing he mentioned that I thought was really interesting was one eye felt dramatically lower quality than the other, which we know something about that.
Yeah. Don't watch the first episode.
Yeah, so I guess, and we talked about this a lot last time, and but I do think it's, now that we've seen it, I'm sort of not impressed.
Yeah, we pretty much went from being like, oh my god, this is going to be so cool, to
Yeah, I think it's a curiosity at best. I do think people are going to use it, but until, I sort of feel like there will be a previous iteration that will be of higher quality, and that I'm pretty interested in. But this version is...
Yeah. But like the other things we've talked about here, I think it means that there's interest in this, and it's just going to keep pushing stereo into the minds of people that maybe are not thinking about stereo video content.
Yeah, and it's something that we've been talking about for a couple weeks, but this week really, or this month really sort of put it into perspective. I feel like we're at a point where stereo is starting to be... There are channels towards mainstream adoption that have never existed previously.
Yeah, and it's happening faster and faster, which I think is the most encouraging part.
Because we now have many various devices shooting for a stereo market. We have multiple VR headsets from different manufacturers at different price points and different market segmentations. PSVR 2, Quest 3, Big Screen Beyond, whatever the Valve Decker headset is going to be. We have a lot of different things vying for the same stereo. So, like, watching movies in 3D on the Quest, I've been doing it over the last month. It is so much better than on any other headset I've ever used. Mind you, I have not tried the Big Screen Beyond, but supposedly that's better than even the Quest 3. But I watched all of Dune in my headset a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago. It was amazing. I had like 5.1 surround sound. It was in 1080p, but it was a crisp 1080p. I really wish I could get it in 4K, but streaming services. Yeah. So it feels like the stereo thing is really hitting, and the spatial video on the iPhone is going to be huge. I mean, what we're seeing here is the MV HEVC pull down. Hugh managed to extract it, and mind you, it's a hacky. Even the way to get it off the phone is hacky. Did you see? It's like... I
didn't even I was like, I don't do beta firmware, so I don't.
Yeah, it's this app called Spatial, which effectively pulls down. It does some FFmpeg magic in the background, and then turns the file on your phone into a non-encrypted version of the file.
Like a more standard side by side.
And then that you can, and it is just a traditional side by side. And here's the thing: is that originally. We were sort of led to believe that there would be some sort of depth magic with this. I'm unsure. Like, maybe it'll work on Apple formats.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. I'm very curious to see once the official firmware comes out. Well, I'll probably do all this
because from what
stuff.
we've seen here, that's not the case.
Yeah. And even Spatialify or whatever is a test flight app. So you have to get all into the test flight program to even play with that. Hopefully that has an official release, but might also get blocked by Apple because of what it does. So but
right.
Anyway, moving on.
So now Slam Phone. This is another one of these things where it is interesting, pretty much only conceptually, because it's not even a real product. There isn't a release date. They're asking for a Kickstarter, so already. Lots of red flags,
Lots of probably not going to happen. But.
Yeah. But I do think this one is super interesting, especially for our community, because it is a VR 180 phone. with domed 180-degree cameras in a stereo configuration. Mind you, it also looks like they're hitting a less than 65 millimeter IPD, but there was a mixed reality news article where the author interviewed the head of the company and said that they are also interested in exploring a 65 millimeter IPD configuration in like this format.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I was just, the reason I'm staring at the video because I'm laughing. So the thing that they said about that, like, we didn't want to do a 65 mil IPD because they're worried about hands on the back of the phone being in the shot. The first shot of this person holding the phone was his hand right under the lenses, which would be in the shot. Again, as anybody knows who's shooting in this format, it sees everything. You can't have...
Yeah.
So this is hilarious to me that was their sort of reason.
Well, I think that's why it's sort of the camera seemed to be
bumped out. They
bumped
are
out, yeah.
But you know it's not enough. It's not enough. I mean, I get my hands on the R5C when I'm just hitting the record button, show up a little bit. So.
But again, it seems like there are many interested forces that. Obviously this seems like a product that has been in design for a while, probably at least a year, probably more than that, probably 2 years, I'm guessing. Though with a Kickstarter, you never know. But, they're trying to race the market to either compete or be an alternative to the iPhone 15 Pro and the Apple Vision Pro stereo cameras. I think this one specifically is much more interesting to me because it is a phone and it's VR 180. And
I love the promise of it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what having a phone in your pocket did for photography and videography. I mean, partially ruined it, but partially.
But then also, we talked about it in the first episode, it brings down the barrier to entry, but it also allows non-informed people to make content that is potentially disastrously bad. So I have so many mixed feelings about it. I do like that it is a VR 180 camera, so it is... How are you going to not damage those cameras, though? Like...
Yeah. I mean,
is it going to have like a lens cap that you have to wear on it?
Have like
Anytime you set the phone down, you're going to be scratching the
You have
lenses.
to use a battery case that's nice and thick.
I mean, it really does. I think it sort of means that you'll have to have a lens cap on it.
Yeah.
But also, it reminds me so much of the Red Hydrogen 1. The
highly successful
red phone by it was a stereo screen and stereo cameras. It was not VR 180 because that wasn't even a twinkle in Google's eye yet, but or I guess it was already around in 2018 when it launched. But anyways, it was a huge flop. And you were saying...
Yeah, I can't remember the exact specifics, but like it seemed like the best thing about the phone was that you could trade it in for credit for a red camera. And I remember, I'm pretty sure it worked for the Komodo specifically, because I remember when the Komodo came out, people were selling the phones and trying to get their hands on the phone because they could get like $1,000.
Oh yeah, so it was like if you could get a used phone for like $200,
right,
you get $800 worth of
exactly
credit or
for
something.
people that didn't know what. Yeah, so
that's really funny.
That's what the fame for me for the Hydrogen 1 phone is. The discount that people got.
All right, I think we're done with that.
But yeah, I think all these products kind of are in that same, I think it's good for the market, although it could be bad. Just like we're saying that, like I worry how much 3D TVs and that whole thing damage the idea of 3D content. And
oh my God, it did irreparable harm.
Yeah,
I mean, people still use the 3D TV comparison to VR still. When it's very clear that there are more Quest 2s than there were ever 3D TVs manufactured. very frustrating.
Yeah. So we'll see.
So this next one, this is a little bit different, less hardware stuff. So iHeartRadio and Meta TV are gearing up. There's to release a series of VR concerts on Meta TV and Horizon venues. We love to see that as people who have made VR concert videos and look to make many more. I love to see that content because it means that there is a market for it. The good thing about this one specifically that I like is that this is speculation, but it's based on the last few iHeartRadio concerts that have been put out, is that when they go up on Horizon venues, they're in 2D, which, boo. But when they go up on Meta TV, they're in stereo, which, big plus. I've watched a few of them in stereo, and they're quite good. I have small little problems with production stuff, but that's just preference stuff. But they're high quality. They look great. They sound great. I don't know any of the performers because I'm an old.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. I was reading through the notes and I was like, well, I don't know.
Oh, all of my favorite bands.
I am an old.
Georgia Smith. You know, like
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna check them out, and hopefully, it'll be something that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is like, I actually do listen to a lot of new music. I try to keep up. It gets harder the closer you get to 40 and past 40. But I still, especially since we work in music stuff, I try to keep interested, and I do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to check these out. I'm excited too, because I think the quality and getting to see new performances live is that moment where you see a really fantastic live performer for the first time and you're like, oh, wow, and you don't even have to listen to the album and you already like it. That's a magical moment.
Yeah. That's there's a festival near here that happens. It's called Pickathon, and that it's a festival all about discovering. It's literally like 3 big artists and a bunch of people you've never heard of, and you come away with like 10 new favorite bands. And
that's such a great experience. I love that. And so I'm really excited that Meta is. It seems that Meta is producing these, but they're being put on by iHeartRadio, which iHeartRadio, if you don't know, is another name for Clear Channel. They rebranded about 10 years ago, and I don't love that they're still, the 10,000 pound gorilla throwing their weight around.
Kind of the worst thing to happen to live music ever.
In the history.
They're also Ticketmaster. Yes, don't they own Ticketmaster as well?
I'm unsure.
I think they do, but
I'm
don't
not
quote
speak
me
on that.
But yeah, either way.
Yeah, and that is a frustrating thing because they have so much power already.
Yeah.
What I would really like to see is I would like to see smaller labels working with in a more streamlined and capacity VR concert producers like us, for example. In a more organized and streamlined capacity, because I think if we could get some other non-Clear Channel affiliated bands, I think there's a lot of stuff out there that would benefit from VR shows.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Oh, okay. So, we're into our featured video segments. All right. So, my video of the week is by VRO Films, and it is Wonders of, Xochimilco, Mexico. It is a fantastic video. I really liked. Okay, I'm gonna switch over to Dio here. All right. What really popped out to me was I thought the use of color was incredible. I think there's a strong sense of presence. I really felt like I was here. They're following like what I like to say are good best practices. So moving the camera on one axis at a time. So either forward or that side shot when he was walking. Because I've noticed that the biggest way to make people sick in VR is to move on two axes at the same time. Or out of two axes. What do you think?
Yeah, agree. I think this does hit all the right, like they never get too close to the camera or anything like that. So like I never once felt nauseous or like wanted to close my eyes, which I've seen a lot of videos lately where people are on a gimbal and they're shooting it like a traditional video. So they're moving in very quickly back and forth and just like, you know, never felt like I had to do that here. I've been to this place before and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what it's like to be there. So
it's so cool. And I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in San Diego. And so a lot of exposure to Mexican culture. My stepmother's Mexican, so we used to go to Mexico all the time. So this was brought me back very much.
But yeah, I'd say my only like little nitpicks are, you know, often faces are overexposed, some technical stuff like that. But I think all the
I didn't, as the less filmmaking oriented guy in the room, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Of course you did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Way to be a
little,
DP, but yeah. But yeah, other than that, I think it's great.
Oh, and shout out! I loved the micheladas, the A+ for the micheladas. As somebody who enjoys a good tajin rim, I can appreciate it. And I really, one of the things that we have talked about quite a bit is that travel videos in VR are some of the most incredible stuff. Really got me through the pandemic, and stuff like this is really fascinating.
Yeah, it might arguably be the best thing to do with VR.
Yeah. I think that, I still want to see narrative in VR.
For sure.
And it doesn't seem like a lot of people are doing that, but maybe they're not doing it for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, we're knocking on that door, but we'll see what we come up with.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next video.
So this was my choice.
So I do not know how to pronounce your name, so I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
It is in the bottom part of the screen.
Yeah, we will not murder your name. But you did amazing drone work here. This is
fantastic drone work.
I popped this in on the headset and I was like immediately struck by the color and the clarity of it. And even though you are flying, the moves aren't too, again, in my opinion, too abrupt or anything like that. And while there is a bit of a sense of a little bit of like air sickness or whatever, I found it to be the same for me as when I'm playing a flight sim in VR, where it's just like you bank the plane over, you kind of get a little nauseous, and to me that to me is successful VR. It's like it's tricking your senses into feeling like you're doing that thing, which is going to mess with you because this is obviously an unnatural thing for a human to do. But none of it was so bad that I didn't want to keep watching. I was very much just like wow, just taking it all in and really enjoying the smoothness and the clarity and the color of it. And it's an interesting way to experience. It's like a different kind of travel video. Yeah. Because there's some moments here where you just see people like driving down the street. And
I mean, the thing that really struck me, there too, is an incredible feeling of flying. So I used to be a pilot. I used to fly little Cessnas. And this is the closest I have gotten to that feeling from any VR video I've ever seen. The other is, I don't know what black magic you used to get this video so stable, but I did not sense any sense of vibration from the motors at all whatsoever.
None, yeah.
I mean, was there I'm guessing it was a combination of post magic and also some really intense stabilization tech, like dampeners. Yeah, I don't know.
It almost seems like if DJI put a stereo camera on the drone, because obviously their tech they've got the whole
much
camera isolation done really, really well. So yeah, I'm very curious because if this was hard mounted and there was a lot of vibration, you'd see it rolling through the CMOS sensors. Yeah. You can't get rid of that. So it's a very impressive video. So
I mean, I will say it did give me towards the end of the video when he's doing some more crazy banking.
It does get a little.
I got some pretty intense motion sickness, but I think it was sort of worth it for the experience. So, yeah, great video. Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff that's being put out right now, and I think people are starting to learn all of the tricks. And if you can wade through the sexy girl videos, there are some absolute diamonds in the rough, and these are definitely two of them. Definitely. So shout out to VRO Films, Wonders of Shoshi Milko, and Roman Shorn by somebody whose name I'm not going to be able to pronounce, but it will be in the show notes. I apologize. All right, let's move on. Xtadium. So this gets back into the live... let's get on that. This gets back into the live content game. So this one is a huge thing for our industry because NBA is huge. I mean, it's probably the second most popular sport in the United States, just behind just behind the NFL. And you know, they're working on that. Shout out to
Live Adam.
But this, lots of mixed feelings on, but it's absolutely in the right direction.
Yeah.
So we both tried out the app. We didn't do the co-location thing just because of timing and scheduling. But if we wanted to, we could have watched either the highlights or the games live in a co-location experience, as if we were watching it together in the same room, which conceptually really interesting. Haven't tried it out that way yet. I would like to do it still if we can find some time. But the big elephant in the room is that it's 180 degree video that is not stereo. Even in its immersive mode, which there is an option. So the way that it works is it's sort of like Horizon Venues, where when you enter into it, you're on a platform, and there's like a virtual room that you're in, and in front of you are like 6 locations seats that you can sort of jump into, which will change your perspective of where you are in the room, but doesn't really change your...
I was going to say only slightly.
Only slightly. It's like maybe a foot.
It's like
or
scooting
2.
over.
Yeah, it's not that different, really. But there is also an immersive mode, which makes all of that go away and wraps the video around your head, but it's still only in 2D. I understand the approach that they're going with, and I think it's one of those things where possibly there's room to adapt the technology. It really seems that because this is, I'm guessing, a co-financed by Meta, or at least probably entirely financed by Meta, but co-produced by Meta, their aspirations are for metaverse aspirations. And so they're driving their content, and this is the same with Horizon Venues, is that they're more interested in the co-watching capability than the immersive capability. I think that is a tactical mistake, but, you know, they're a billion-dollar corporation, and I'm just a dude in a room, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a mistake. It just may not be as ideal, but, you know, I was talking to my buddy Brandon. He's a friend of both of ours. He's big basketball fan, always has been.
I like basketball, too.
And so he was like, when I told him about it, he's like, well, that sounds really cool. That sounds like a really cool way to watch the game. Haven't got a headset on his head yet to see what he actually thinks about it. Mm-hmm. But I could also see him
we've got 3 headsets. We can do it.
We totally could. And this would be a good way to test the co-location thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I think he could be into that. So, you know, I think it'll... There's always like the difference between...
No reason to watch a Trailblazers game, but...
Right.
No Dame, no points, apparently.
Yeah. To, like, you know, to see what the opinions of someone who's not like immersed in the tech and just as a pure consumer, what do they think? You know, because I bet most people actually don't care about stereo as much as we do.
And part of it, I think, of why it's so interesting and why it's our main topic is because you can watch 52 games this year, which is a tiny fraction of the amount of games that are played every year, but it's still a lot of free content, 2 a week from what I've seen. that you can watch live, and then highlights for everything, or highlights for lots of videos. That's a lot of content, and it really seems that Meta is trying to compete against Apple, because Apple NextVR used to do
this exact
same concept, and so it looks like Meta is trying to cut Apple off at
like head them off at the pass.
Yes, exactly. Which I think is smart for Meta, because they're going to need these types of experiences, because this is the type of thing that will sell a headset. Especially if you use the NBA League Pass, which some people do, is you have access to a lot more games. And you can do it in this sort of multi-view mode. It's sort of like Buffalo Wild Wings, the experience.
Yeah, I mean, but some people do that. You know, I mean,
no,
like,
I know.
There's a whole. I
understand
think there's an
personally,
NFL. Was it Red Pass or something?
Yeah,
like
something
that,
similar.
That does the same thing, and people are like into that. And it's like, I'm not that guy, but like, you know, if you want to sit.
But
in
if you are that
and,
guy,
this is it.
Like, if you get a case of Coors Light and you know, some cheese sticks, and you do the NBA League Pass through Xtadium, it'll feel like you're at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, without every other part of that experience.
Hey, you know, their happy hour, it's pretty excellent. And this is not sponsored, by the way. Though, if you're interested.
Not opposed. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, well.
I think things like this are what their Meta is going to need to stand out. And it's also the types of things, like, if the NFL can get this worked out, that's even bigger than the NBA. I mean, it won't be as flashy, because it won't be as heavily produced, because it'll be very difficult to scale that up. But I mean, putting a camera down on the 50-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, I think ultimately where this stuff is really going to take off is getting you in a place where you could never go. Right. Yeah. It is a magic whatever portal thing. You know, who gets to be anywhere near this? You know, most of us who don't make $1 bajillion a year don't get these like types of tickets for ball games and can't be on the field. So like, the more that we can put these cameras in places where we're not really allowed to be, that really becomes an experience that is worth paying for.
Access. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that these cameras are good at, and it's the thing that is going to sell headsets. And I think that's why we're seeing this level of investment this early on.
Yeah. I think this whole thing has been the shot in the arm the industry needed, and I'm here for it.
Though, it'd be a lot better if it was in stereo.
It would, and I think those days are coming, but I think I think it also just validates our own struggles with doing this stuff. There's a reason they're not, because it's infinitely easier.
Give us an option. I mean, if that's what they're interested, if they're worried about depth convergence conflict, just give us the option.
I think it's literally just technical. Like, you can't live stream. It's just so much harder to live stitch and get that out there, double the bandwidth, the whole thing. I think
that's true. Like,
if it is just a basic cinema camera with a 180-degree lens on it, like fisheye.
How has nobody figured that out yet? I mean,
it just takes processing.
VR 180 live streaming is still everybody's white whale.
Right. But there's not quite enough money yet in the market to throw the resources behind the development it will take to do that kind of decoding.
But when it hits, it's going to hit like a neutron bomb, you know?
But it might take things like dual M2 processors or something like that, like ARM processors doing this stuff on the fly. Because it is a lot of processing. I'm like, as y'all know, you can throw the most powerful computers in the world at it, and it takes time.
Which is ridiculous, because it was a feature that was in YouTube. Google had it, VR 180 live streaming, baked into YouTube in 2018.
Yeah, but it looked good.
Sure, but they had it running.
Yeah.
All they have to do is scale up the bandwidth, you know.
Yeah,
I
but
think.
That's,
I mean, it's probably more
there's
complicated
definitely
than
more
that.
to it. But,
yeah. I mean,
I think this is where we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at the end here, folks. I think we have hit our time limit, but I think this is a good one.
Yeah. Let us know what you think about the changes. Obviously, I'm sure you're going to let us know what we did
I think
wrong.
this more natural thing, I think it works for us a lot better.
Yeah.
I think y'all will be way more interested in terms of the depth and that type of thing. We would love to get comments. The both eyes are in focus this time.
Yeah. Got that worked out, and we'll have the vertical disparity corrected this time as well. So.
Yeah. And if you would like to be featured as one of the content creators in the video, PM us. We'll look through stuff. I think we would really like to feature videos as actual VR videos.
Yeah, we'd like to insert them into this video.
So you're not just watching it on a tiny little screen. This works for now, but we would like to be able to have the full immersion within the video. And it's only a small clip. We're not 30 seconds to a minute or something like that.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to be featured in that, hit us up.
And we'll make it happen.
All right.
All right. Thanks for watching, y'all. See you next time.
Peace.